Thank you, Adrian, and the Naturally New York team. It is such an honor to be here. Thank you for having me and for having Rodrigo and Miguel in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. So you can refer to me as Lorena or Lorena, however you'd like. And it's been really an honor getting to know a bit about the brands, about Miguel and Rodrigo. And I'm just curious to kind of get to know you both more and have some really exciting questions for us.
No, thanks a lot for having us. And Adrian and Naturally New York, we started SOMOS 3.5 years ago, and it's been just amazing to have this ecosystem of startup companies in the food and beverage, but also the rest of the ecosystem. I don't think we'd be here today without this community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just give a little bit of intro. So we'll start with Miguel and Rodrigo. I'll follow with you. Miguel is a Mexican-American food industry veteran. He's the co-founder and CEO of SOMOS. And you really have a rich career in the food industry, previously serving as Executive Vice President of Marketing at Kind Snacks, CMO at Cholula, where you really helped accelerate growth for all the brands. And also you held senior roles at Danone, at Frito-Lay's PepsiCo, and really where you began your career managing the Lay's potato chip category. And Rodrigo, who's also co-founder and head of product at SOMOS. Rodrigo is an experienced entrepreneur and intrapreneur, and very much well versed in the consumer goods industry. And you are the new product development at Kind previously. And you are also part of capitalincluyente.org, which is an organization that fosters employee ownership in Mexico and in Latin America. And really, you are helping to contribute better wages, savings, and working conditions for workers. And you're also an author of a book called Employee Ownership of the Americas, A Path to Shared Prosperity. So I'd like to welcome you both here today and really get to know a little bit more about your personal background and your entrepreneurial journey. So let's dive right in. Speaking of personal background, Miguel, for you, you grew up in Monterrey, Mexico. You initially wanted to pursue a career in engineering. So can you tell us a little bit about how that background kind of shaped and molded you and helped you grow and found SOMOS?
Yeah, so I come from a family of engineers. So my grandfather was an engineer, all my uncles were engineers. I was the oldest grandkid, so I kind of only knew engineers, so that's what I studied. And then when I went to get my master's, I found my first class was marketing, and I just completely fell in love with it. I had never, thought of myself as a marketer, but, it really spoke to me. I think I mostly had sales and marketing roles all my career in food and bev. But, when we started SOMOS, it was great not only to have, my marketing and sales experience, but also going back to my roots and, my first job in operations as an engineer, when we are doing P0s and we were negotiating with the co-packers, it comes in handy just to know, how shifts work and how production gets scheduled and all those things. So I think, when we started the company, it was, just the three of us, the three founders. And now we have a bigger team, but you have to wear many different hats when you're starting out. And it's good to be familiar with the different things in the business.
Absolutely. And you've also mentioned the impact of your family's entrepreneurial spirit, specifically your grandfather. What values and practices have you kind of learned from him that you're applying to your brand?
Yeah, so, everybody in my family started their own business. So I was the weird one, that was working for like Pepsi and Danone. And, in my family, if you don't have your own business, like you're a second-class citizen. And yeah, so, my grandpa passed away 10 years ago, but we were very close. He was my best friend. And he would always, every time that I would see him, before he said hi, he would ask me about my market share, like every time. And he had just this mentality of like, you either grow or you die, like companies, they grow, and then when they stop growing, they just die. And I think that has been, very important for us in the ethos of SOMOS, because sometimes you have a product that is not growing. And, as entrepreneurs, we never like to kill products, but, sometimes you have to. And if a product is not growing or you're not growing at a retailer, you have to invest in it for growth or make the tough decision to cut it off. So, we still practice that value today.
Now, Rodrigo, you were born in Mexicali, in Baja California Norte, and raised in Guadalajara. Your interest in manufacturing really began at a young career where you launched a manufacturing company as a teenager. And I was reading that you really were into kind of using your mother's cooking sauces, and that's where it all started. So how did that background and that shape, how you're kind of applying that to SOMOS?
Yes. Well, SOMOS, for me, it weaves my past, present, and into the future. And it kind of brings everything together. The entrepreneurial experiences, my first, I wanted to be a restaurateur growing up. And so I worked in restaurants in in the kitchen, in the bar, everywhere, waiting tables. And I was learning. After that, I went into college, and I started a business making gourmet cooking sauces, some of which have been or has inspired, some recipes for SOMOS. And that venture got me an opportunity to get into Kind, that also shaped and informed so many things, in my career. So it's been a learning journey for the past 20 years. I've been in the food industry for 20 years. I started in 2004. First, it was those 3 to 4 years in making gourmet cooking sauces at home. Like, we started in the kitchen, then had a pilot plant, and we sold to Walmart stores in our region, Sam's Club, and gourmet stores. So I was kind of hitting the pavement and selling to gourmet stores, doing demos on site, in stores, even in Sam's Clubs. I was doing the demos, when we started. So honestly, it has shaped a lot, and it has given me kind of, work ethic and the perseverance and grit that you need to face all the challenges, that we encounter in the business. And it also has opened a lot of doors. I think some suppliers that I knew of because of that experience I had, and well, for me, SOMOS is a platform to honor and celebrate my roots through the food that we're making, the ingredients that go in it, how we the care that goes into making the products, and then how we do business. And for me, treating people with dignity and respect. And this comes from the experiences that I had when I was an entrepreneur, selling in Walmart stores and seeing how the people would treat either employees or treat the persons putting product on shelf, and so anyway, those are experiences that have formed a vision of the business that we want to build, and so for me, it's kind of angular, to SOMOS, and why I wake up every day, to fight the fight. Yeah.
It's amazing how experiences kind of shape us. So going back to your experience at Kind and reflecting on that, being kind of leading the new product development team over there, what are the key lessons that you've learned about consumer behavior?
So to me, I think we've applied a lot of what we learned in what we are building at SOMOS, and so I think of it more on the applied format, where so for example, we developed a product portfolio that was inclusive, that was not anchored in one niche. So we have a portfolio of products that it's suitable for vegans, vegetarians, flexitarians, or meat eaters, And we thought about it that way, like we wanted to be inclusive. Like everyone is kind of welcome at our table. And that came from that experience, from working with Miguel and Daniel at Kind. I think the other was just applying USDA dietary guidelines to what we were building, like using whole grains and legumes, vegetables, nuts and seeds, and into our foods, and in the end, having wholesome food products. And I think it just whether it's from the ingredients that we use or the philosophy of the experience we want to give consumers, I think those were informed by that experience at Kind, and very rich experiences, I think.
Amazing. And definitely, SOMOS is really changing the way Mexican food is viewed, perceived, eaten. And you're making it available to so many homes across America. And Miguel, when we talk about SOMOS and the mission of SOMOS, really, what is the problem that SOMOS is solving?
Yeah, I think we started from the opportunity, and the opportunity was, Mexican food is the most popular ethnic food in America. It surpassed Italian food a couple of years ago, and it's on the tune of $69 billion. But 82% of all Mexican food comes from a restaurant. So we were just really curious why, even though it's the same size as Italian food, a lot more people, 3 times as much, meals are made in Italian food at home than in Mexican food. And what we realized is Italian food is not even considered ethnic. You don't think you consider pasta and sauce to be part of the mainstream diet. But Mexican food, it's complicated. The recipes, if you Google any recipe online for Mexican food, it takes between 45 minutes and an hour. It has 9 or 10 different ingredients, and it leaves your kitchen like a mess. So we wanted to change that. And I think, part of the problem that we were trying to solve is we wanted to become, for retailers, the pasta and sauce of the Mexican aisle. That you can get 3 ingredients, that you can cook under 10 minutes, and you can have a meal for a family of 4 for under $20. And we wanted to be that, when SOMOS goes on promotion, we have a big promotion going up at Meijer right now. 60% of the people buying that promotion are new to the category. So we are doing that. We're bringing these people in. So that is the problem we're trying to fix for the retailer. For people at home, Mexican food is very popular. And I think the most popular is to get Uber Eats from Chipotle. And if you get a meal for 2 people from Chipotle and Uber Eats, it's going to take 50 minutes to get home, and it's going to be close to $50 in price. And with SOMOS, you can do it for a third of the price, for a third of the time. And I think, there is a little bit of what you said. You can save money. You can have something that is going to be fresher, that is going to taste better. But I also think there's going to be a little bit that you're going to jump from cooking all the El Paso or Tex-Mex food into something that is more, of a culture that you might fall in love with it. My mom used to say, people fall in love through their stomachs. So we're trying to do a little bit of that.
Like water for chocolate?
Yes.
Well, and also, because of how fast it is to make the meal, do you find that New York is a great market for you, given the fact that we're always in a rush?
I hadn't thought of that, but New York, it is a big market for us. So our biggest customer is Whole Foods. They represent about 35% of our sales. And their number 1 region in velocity is the Northeast. Maybe it has to do with people having no time there.
So earlier this year, you expanded your product portfolio, which included a lot of meal solutions with a new line of taco, fajita, al pastor simmering sauces. red and green enchilada sauces, and a variety of mole simmering sauces. So when you speak about the cultural representation in food, how is Somos working to kind of shift that consumer perception of Mexican food in the U.S. market?
Thank you. So I think first the consumers are exposed to Mexican food in restaurants across the US or when they travel to Mexico. More US consumers are traveling now to cities that are very rich, culturally rich, instead of, or in addition to the tourist destinations that are more popular, no? Like, so I think in those trips, they're being exposed to the flavors. And what we're doing at Somos is bringing those flavors into the supermarket shelf and making it easy for consumers to prepare at home. So I think we're contributing in this part where you have the restaurants in the US, people traveling to Mexico, and you have now products such as mole available at Whole Foods that a consumer can make very easily at home when it's a dish that is so complicated to make that it can take days, no, to make a mole. So we're making it very easy for consumers to make a delicious meal in minutes, no?
Yeah, and speaking about that, I mean, I know that there's always challenges that you face with being a founder and working with so many different brands and portfolios, different products in your portfolio. How have you navigated to ensure the kind of authenticity of Somos while really appealing to the broader audience for the?
For that, I have three examples, no, of things that we've wrestled with or found ourselves in a pickle, no? And I think the first one has to do with naming, no? Like we've started with authentic naming, or authentic names such as picadillo or salsa macha for Mexican chili crisp. And we realized that we needed to have names, product names that were familiar to the consumer. If we bring something that is authentic, but the consumer doesn't know what it is, I think I heard Harissa, no, that example, then you do double the work because now you have to explain what the product is. Instead, so we are now meeting consumers where they are. If they know chili crisp as an ingredient or as a product, we named it now Mexican chili crisp, and we have these discussions internally on the product names, no? So that's one of the challenges that is this tension between authenticity and making it kind of available for a broad audience. Another one is we have Anna in our marketing team, and she uses this term "safe but dangerous" that I love. And so what this means is that it's not too far from what the consumer knows, and they're willing to go on a limb to try it. But you're making it safe, but slightly dangerous, no? So maybe I don't know, the hot and sweet jalapeno that we have over there, that it's outstanding, delicious, and the salsa macha that we developed so that it wasn't too spicy, so that we could reach a broader audience. And it's still delicious. Like you get all the flavor, but not the heat. So it's easier for the consumer. And I think the other one has been a tension we've been having between convenience, like making something that is very easy to make for the consumer, and then the experience, like the product at the end, like the dish that you're going to put on the table. And I don't know, one example is, I mean, we can make al pastor. We have our al pastor simmer sauce. You can make it in a stovetop where you sear the meat and then you add the sauce and let it simmer for a few minutes, or you can make it on the grill, no? Or you can make it oven roasted. And so I think we're having those discussions around like the cooking, how the consumer will cook the product so that they get the best experience on their plates, because that's what will bring more business, no? If they have an outstanding experience. But those are some things that we're kind of wrestling and discussing and growing, honestly, I think.
Yeah, exciting. And then, it's interesting how you're, honoring your heritage and Somos in Spanish, we are. I always love hearing about kind of the brand philosophy and how you came to getting the logo and that whole process, 'cause that's really exciting. Miguel, you started kind of your love for Mexican food stems from your grandmother's cooking, as you mentioned. You incorporate the essence of traditional home cooked meals into your product line. How do you do that?
So I think my grandma, her name was Maria de Jesus. She was like the queen of whipping something up when someone showed up unexpectedly or were hungry. And I think, she passed away before TikTok, but if she had been around, she would have crushed the whole, cooking hacks, trend. And I think with Somos, like teaching people how to do Mexican food quickly, it reminds me a lot of her because, even though she was great at doing it, she never cut any corners and her food was delicious. So I think I am continuing a lot her legacy through that.
Yeah, abuelas are very special people, that's for sure. And speaking of kind of going back to the branding, how has your family or your co-founder's family kind of contributed to the logo and the branding? Because I know, with my own company, I definitely passed that through my family, and everyone had a different opinion. So I'm sure that was the case with you and your family. I'm curious to know.
So so there are three founders. So it's Rodrigo, myself, and Daniel, the founder of Kind. And the three of us used to work together at Kind, and the three of us are friends, and the three of us are Mexican. And when we started the business, we didn't have a name, and we didn't have a name for a really long time. And then Daniel and I are both married to Americans, so Michelle and Jeanette. And when we were coming up with the name of the company, it was actually Michelle, Daniel's wife, who came up with the name. We had a list of 200 different names that we were thinking about, and we narrowed it down. Everybody voted to our top 5. It's kind of, I went back to the document to see them, and some names were terrible. I'm like, what were we thinking? Maybe Somos is a terrible name. I don't know. But he came up with that name, and her whole point is it couldn't be something corny like hola or like amigos, that, everybody knows about. But it also couldn't be something very complicated that people cannot pronounce. We love, how brands like Cholula or Topo Chico, are, people don't know what it means, but they are like super easy to pronounce. And when Michelle came up with the name of Somos, Daniel loved it because of what it means. We felt, like Rodrigo said, that we wanted a brand where everybody had a seat at the table. I loved it because it's a word that is written the same, forward and backwards. So I thought it would be really nice to print. It would be a nice word it's very symmetric. It would look great on a packaging. And then the most important thing is the website was available, the trademark, that's available. So it kind of like passed all those steps. So that's kind of how everybody chimed into it.
So La Gringa came up with the name. I love it. I love it. Hey, this is great. Such a good story. So also, Miguel, can you speak to kind of the branding process, speaking of brand, and how you source a Monterrey-based female-owned agency? And speaking to that, also, I know that you are creating platforms for Mexico's emerging artists, chefs, musicians. Can you kind of speak to how you're doing that?
Yeah. So when we had the name and we had the business plan and we had the recipes, thanks to Rodrigo. So now we needed to create a packaging. And I just feel like it was such a great time because it was me and Daniel, just the two of us. He had just, exited Kind from being the CEO of the company to, now being a joint venture with Mars. He hadn't started his family office, so shameless plug, Camino Partners. So someone is looking for funding. And he had a lot of time, and I had just exited Cholula, so I had a lot of time. So it was really, when you get a chance to work with the guy that came up with the brand Kind, he's like a marketing genius. And it was just like the two of us during COVID from our homes on Zoom working on designing the brand. But neither of us is a designer. So we look at a couple of options. There were these super expensive firms in New York that for $100,000, they will create everything, the brand guidelines and all of that. And then I went to visit my parents in Monterrey, and I saw this beautiful bottle of wine. And I was like, that is just a beautifully designed label. And the owner of the restaurant, which is a friend of mine, Sergio, he's like, oh, that is done by, my friend's wife. She's starting an agency. And I was like, I want to meet this person. So I went and I showed up. It's called Common Matter. So her name is Lily. And I went and I saw it. And she's like, we've never worked in food. Like we've done, the closest we've been is, wine labels and restaurants, but we've never designed a CPG package. And then we're like, we've only done CPG packaging. Like, how awesome is to have someone with an outsider's point of view. And what, Lily and her partners brought to the table, which was great, is when we told them what we were trying to do with SOMOS, which is bring, be a bridge between cultures, they say, oh, we got it. You have to use Alebrije style, like the movie Coco, like Alebrije style art. And we say, why do you think this? Because if you think of Alebrijes, it's different animals coming together, different colors coming together, different shapes coming together, that otherwise they would never mix. But when you put them together, you create something more beautiful. And that is exactly what you're trying to do with this brand. And I was like, okay, solved. Yes.
And then you're also working with chefs and musicians and other social entrepreneurs. How are you kind of elevating their brand or their platform?
We were just talking about that with someone in the back, but so the sweet and hot jalapenos that we have on the table, that is a recipe from a Mexican chef, Patty Hinich, gave us that recipe. And we took our buying team of Whole Foods to San Miguel de Allende last year. And we were there for 3 nights. And I was thinking, how is this my life that I get to travel with Whole Foods to San Miguel and eat with different chefs every day? But, I think just like exposing Whole Foods to the growers, to the people that grow our beans and grow our peppers, to the different chefs, including Chef Patty, to different types of food. Like one of the foods that they love was this arroz negro, that is rice with squid ink. We're like, okay, maybe the market is not ready for that yet, but, delicious. But, bringing that continues the ethos that we had from SOMOS. Like, now we have this partnership with Patty, and, Patty has been a bring, but now her recipe gets to be in all the Whole Foods everywhere because of her relationship with SOMOS, which is, amazing.
And then Rodrigo, back to kind of what you were saying about how complex and diverse Mexican food is. How do you really showcase that diversity in Mexican cuisine? Because, when you go to Oaxaca, when you go to Mexico City, Guadalajara, there's all the different states have so many different kind of their cultural food region. So with a brand like SOMOS, how do you bring that all together, touching all aspects of Mexico, which seems impossible, but I'm curious to know how you do that.
Little by little. Yeah, I think just little by little, we've been focusing on different regions and starting to launch different regions. Part of it is just the care we put in sourcing, like the raw materials, and then also the preparation of the ingredients. So, for example, on a street corn or a street corn rice, where we fire roast the corn, And that's reminiscent of street vendors in Mexico or throughout Mexico, that they fire roast the corn in the plazas, no? So that's one example, no? But we also, we have a team of food scientists, no, based in Mexico, from Puebla. So our mole poblano is outstanding, and it's very authentic. That team member learned to make mole from La Abuela, no? We also visit restaurants, no? So if there is a dish that we're not familiar with, or we try it from different places to help inform, we have a culinary gold standard that then we try to replicate in the industrial process. And that's, I think, how we do it. No, it's having a reference and developing the standard, a culinary standard, and then trying to replicate for industrial setting. And then I think the examples are, we talked about the mole poblano, al pastor, which is from Mexico City. Salsa macha is originally from Veracruz. And so it's little by little, we'll be expanding our portfolio and covering different regions. No, there is a lot of diversity and delicious flavors that will, as the market is ready and products or dishes are more familiar, we can bring them to the market. So it's not, as I mentioned, like too authentic and too dangerous for consumers to try. No, it's
See feet, but you're doing it. And how are you going about balancing the aspects of kind of traditional aspects of Mexican food? How are you going about doing that, but really innovating that for a modern, health-conscious audience?
I think the first step has been ingredients. So we know what ingredients not to use, no? And I think that speaks to relevance. Like we know where consumers are, what ingredients they're seeking, which ones they are avoiding. So development, taking that criteria in mind, makes it a little bit easier. So that will be the first one. The other one is providing products that are relevant. We talked about this inclusivity, no? Like you have this spectrum of vegan and vegetarianism and flexitarian. So making products that are suitable for a wider audience. I think that's also kind of innovating, no? in making it more inclusive. The other thing is, I think, challenging, know that Mexican food is not necessarily heavy, or it can be wholesome, it can be balanced, no? And so through our portfolio, where we have rice, beans, and then now with the simmer sauces, you can make different dishes now with animal protein, and you will have a balanced meal that is not heavy, that it's filling, wholesome. So those are different ways. And the last one is just adapting to cooking technology that the consumer has at home today, and making products so that it's easy, convenient for consumers to cook at home, that will take very little time, and just leveraging those technologies, no? Like devices. And, yeah.
Absolutely. Let's move to kind of the business strategy and of the brands. Miguel, you've mentioned numerous times that you really experienced success with direct-to-consumer sales during the pandemic, but it was challenging to maintain. You did mention that. What were the key lessons you learned from that experience, and how has that really influenced some strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we decided to do the SOMOS beta test on direct to consumer. We were in the pandemic. We put together boxes, our original idea. In one box, you can have everything that you needed to do Taco Tuesday at home. You can have the tortillas, the salsas, the rice, the beans, everything for that. And, I think the biggest mistake that we made was executing a beta test during the pandemic. Like we thought we were going to do $15,000 a week, and we first week sold out 50,000, and we're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then, Of course, the pandemic ended and our sales went very quickly to zero. And I guess, what I would like to, if I could go back, 3.5 years ago, I would be, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I feel like we were very lucky that as the pandemic ended and we pivoted to retail, there was not a lot of innovation on the Mexican side. So we were able to very quickly gain distribution. However, it has taken us a while to develop those categories because we had a small number of SKUs in a lot of different categories, which is what you do to D2C. And now to move that into a retail assortment, we had to discontinue a lot of SKUs, even exit co-packers in order to get our range to the 3 categories where we are today. So it's been a lot of work, but knock on wood, we made it safe on the other side.
Yes, and you're now in, you mentioned over 11,000 stores, from H-E-B to Publix, Sprouts to Whole Foods, and many more. What was kind of the turning point for the company, and how did you leverage your experiences as companies like we mentioned, Kind, Cholula?
Yeah, I think, with Kind, we were excellent at trade shows. Every year, even before I worked at Kind, I would always go and visit Rodrigo and Daniel to the Kind booth. And it was like one of the best, if not the best, run booth in all of Expo. And when the pandemic ended and our DT sales went to zero, we were very lucky because another very large Mexican company that made a big sale last week, exited their booth. So all of a sudden there was this amazing corner booth, 3 booth size at the entrance of Expo that became available. And the Expo team called us and they were like, hey, would you guys be interested in taking over this booth that was just canceled? So we had 3 or 4 weeks to prepare. I spoke with Daniel and Rodrigo and we're like, well, let's give it a try. We executed that Expo perfectly. We served something crazy like 6,000 tacos that Expo. And we were able to get into 4,000 stores coming out of that show. Sprouts came from that show, H-E-B came from that show, Albertsons National came from that show. And it was a moment in time. I don't expect to get, $4,000 every time I do a trade show, but this was the first trade show after the pandemic. And the buyers of Mexican food were looking for innovation. They had cleaned out the set in the last previous 18 to 24 months. So, for us, what do they say? Luck is, where preparation meets opportunity. So I think we're very lucky.
And how have you, speaking of kind of partnerships with your fellow co-founders, I spoke a little bit about Daniel and Miguel, how have you kind of contributed to the success and differentiation of SOMOS to really a competitive market?
Yes, I have some thoughts on Miguel's and Daniel's contribution more than mine. And I think each of us have a different perspective and it's complementary. But I think, Miguel's experience, your creativity, help us first develop the iconic brand that you can now see. And honestly, it took so much work to get to where it is. And that was through Miguel's leadership, working with this agency. Honestly, it wouldn't have been where it is today without your guidance. No, and I think another one is just identifying the opportunity that came just from Miguel, the attracting insane talent. No, that Miguel brought together that we worked together while at Kind, at Cholula. And then it was also, it opened the door for distributors and retailers. And the other point is, I think Miguel is very generous with his network and contributes a lot, advice, supports a lot of founders. And I think that also opens the doors. It's kind of karma, no? I think both from an energy and also help. Like if you have a challenge, he has a lot of people to call and get advice on. And honestly, that has helped in so many different ways. Just being here naturally in New York as well is one of them, no? But I think those to me are some of the critical contributions, no? And also like the time that we did everything was very short. Had it been on my time, it would have taken much longer, no, to get it done. And from Daniel, he has helped us expand reach. Some of the, or most of the PR opportunities that we got very early on, if you remember, Miguel, back in 2021, were thanks to Daniel's and both his experience and also like he's very proficient in PR. And it also helped open the doors with retailers and distributors, having Daniel on our side as a founder. And then as we were talking with manufacturers in Mexico, it also helped a lot because we either they knew about Daniel and Kind Snacks, and if they didn't, they would be intrigued to learn about it. And so that helped. In Mexico, it's a little bit different because you need to earn the trust to make anything happen. And it takes time to build that trust. You need to build relationships and here in the US, most of my experience, you start with trust, you can lose it. No, like you start with a similar base of trust that whoever you're doing business is it's someone that is trustworthy, and maybe they will lose that trust. So having Daniel on our side helped in that kind of early stage. I was making those phone calls. I was talking to the different manufacturers or ingredient suppliers or packaging suppliers, and it just made things flow a little bit easier. No? So that's, I think, some of the key areas where
Now your turn, Rodrigo. What have you done?
My turn.
No, it's okay. We know you don't have to answer it. We know you contributed so much to the company. I do want to know about the Mexican suppliers.
Okay.
And how have your partnerships with them helped shape SOMOS and SOMOS's identity working with Mexican suppliers? Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yes, and feel free to compliment Miguel if you feel. So I think, I mean, we've gone in with a mindset of supplier development. So different suppliers we work with are at different stages, and some didn't have, for example, third-party audits, and we work with them for over a year to get there. So like we've invested in those companies, and some actually we ended up not doing business with them, but we still partnered with them, helped them in developing their quality systems because we were interested in doing business. And I think that's been a commitment from day one. And the manufacturers in turn have also contributed a lot of ideas, product innovation suggestions, how to simplify recipes that we came up, and maybe they were a little bit too complex to bring to the manufacturing process. So they help us simplify. I think those are different ways in which that partnership with our contract manufacturers have gone. No, like there is a lot of support that we give each other, and we're investing time and energy and resources in developing those partnerships and growing with them. And I think this is something that I learned from Daniel in my long tenure at Kind, and we are not a transactional business, and we from day one been building those relationships for the long term. So, yes.
Thank you. And Miguel, what motivated you to choose manufacturing in Mexico over the US?
Well, I started SOMOS after Cholula, and Cholula was 100% made in Mexico. And what I found out through that experience was just we were able to have access to a lot more ingredients that if we were to manufacture in the US, even after we sold the business to McCormick, McCormick still kept all the manufacturing in Mexico. So I thought like there was something there of having, Mexican recipes made in Mexico with Mexican ingredients, would be a good way to go. And then the second thing is that I felt, at least my experience in Cholula, is that the dollar will always appreciate versus the peso. So we were able to, gain margin through time through that. And of course, as luck will have it, I'm 49 years old, and the only 3 years that the peso has appreciated versus the dollar is the time we've had SOMOS. So it kind of like didn't work to our favor. But now, this year it corrected and we are back to where we started. So hopefully it's the beginning of better days.
Yeah. And Miguel, can you kind of take us through your go-to market strategy? Was it releasing 1 SKU, 2, 3, or was it the whole portfolio at a time? Things change, I would imagine.
Well, we didn't have any option because we started with our D2C portfolio at Expo. So we were just, retailers would ask us, like Kroger would come to us and they would be like, which items should we take? And we seriously had no idea. And we gave them the worst items that like turned. Like now that I look back, I was like, well, that was a terrible decision. But, the market voted and, right now we're like 55 to 60% of all of our sales are rice. So rice is our number one item. We mostly develop rice. When we start with a new account, like we just got into Publix, we start with rices first, and then we build the portfolio from rices. But I think for us, we've really focused on these 10-minute recipes. If you're going to do something in 10 minutes, it's probably going to be a burrito bowl. People love burrito bowls. No one is like teaching people how to do them at home. And for a burrito bowl, you need 3 things. You need a rice, you need whole beans, and you need a protein. And, that's why we start with rices, then we do beans, then we do cooking sauces. And that's the way that, at the beginning, we didn't have a choice. We ended up discontinuing a lot of products, but we went with what gave us the highest velocities.
And what strategies are you applying to really make your products stand out in the grocery shops?
Yeah, so we do one thing, but we try to do it really well. We've tried sampling because at Kind we were great at sampling. We've tried social media because with Cholula we were great at social media. What works the best with SOMOS is when someone can do a 10-minute recipe at home. That's when we have the highest repeat rates, and that's when people come back and buy us again. So the best thing we can do is a program called Mexican Meals Made Easy. We started it at H-E-B, but we're running it at Meijer now. We're about to do it at Albertsons in a couple of months, in which we partner with other brands in the category. With the one at Meijer, we're doing Mission Foods tortillas, Herdes salsa, and rice and beans from SOMOS, which we teach consumers. We put an offer together at an attractive price point, and we teach consumers how to create something from scratch. And we do really well in those promotions. They, sometimes double our velocities pre and post promotion. So, we tried different things. We found one thing that works, and now we are very focused on just executing that really well and execute it. We're not trying to do it through Instacart, so we can hit even more retailers with the same partners. But yeah, that's kind of the game plan that we have.
Right. And you've spoken a lot about the importance of understanding accounting and focusing on profitability rather than growth. Can you share with us a specific instance where paying attention to these details really help navigate?
Yeah. Or I also have an example where not paying attention, kind of like almost destroyed us. But no, like the only thing that I would say is if I had a do-over, and I seriously hope, we continue to run this business for many more decades. But if I had to start another business, I would my first hire would be a controller, so an accountant, not a finance person. Because, now we're very lucky. Rodrigo was talking about talent. We just hired, a fantastic CFO. She came from Kind, and she's, just like completely changed. But the cleanup that we've had to do, like our P&Ls have always been in great shape. Actually, we're here at Anshin. Anshin is helping us with a review of our accounting for this year. But yeah, I kind of feel like, we are paying for a lot of those mistakes.
And you mentioned Anshin. Are there other tools that really have helped you, pretty much better manage your business?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, this is another one, but I think like QuickBooks is an amazing tool because we came from Cholula. We ended up with SAP One, and I would tell you, the simplest you can run your business at the beginning. There are so many easy interfaces that you can use with QuickBooks that I don't have access to because we over-engineered our accounting and our books. And again, knock on wood, hopefully I don't have to do this again. And SOMOS can pay for the bills, for the rest of my career. But if I did, I would certainly undercomplicate the accounting.
I have so many questions, but I want to leave it to the audience to ask some questions as well. My last question is, you've navigated, Miguel, many challenges from profitability to product development. What type of advice can you really give to entrepreneurs, especially those who are looking to disrupt, specific markets?
Yeah, I think what works, there are so many things that you need to find out. So Rodrigo gave the example, how spicy is the product? Also, what is the name? What do you call the product? Do you call it harissa honey, or do you call it the spicy honey with harissa? A big one for me has been price points. Just like, what is the price points and where the product is going to sell. And then another big one was the merchandising. We kind of like did it the wrong way. We did a, big beta test on D2C, and then we immediately launched to 4,000 stores. I think our road to profitability would have gotten there faster if we had tested in 400 stores coming out of Expo instead of 4,000. And a lot of people gave me that advice, and I didn't take it, but maybe, someone here can learn from that mistake.
Amazing. Well, we have some minutes here for audience questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Pass the mic.
Well, thank you both for your time, and thank you for the great questions that make very interesting conversation. Also, that you just mentioned the velocities, if you look at Whole Foods Wall Street, maybe I'm contributing to that because I love your products. My question would be, one, what has been the most rewarding experience from building SOMOS together? And also, a lot of advice that sometimes people give is don't do business with friends and family, and because there are some horrible stories. So what have you together decide, or how do you make it work so that your friendship has remained and will remain, even with tough discussions that sometimes happen in business?
Yeah, Rodrigo and I met working together, and Daniel, that's how we met. We did a project together of yogurt with Kind granola 15 years ago when I was at Danone and Daniel and Rodrigo were at Kind. And we worked great together. And then we were business partners at Kind, and we worked great together. And then we didn't see each other. Rodrigo left Kind, moved to Mexico. I left Cholula. I left Kind for Cholula. And what we realized those 2 years that we were working together is that we went from seeing each other every day to not only calling each other on our birthdays. And I think part of starting SOMOS was really just to hang out, we wanted to like, hey, what is the best way that the three of us can hang out? Well, let's start a business. So yeah, I think we just, I tell my kids that you have all kinds of friends, and there are friends that you will never introduce them to your sister, for example, and there are friends that you will never start a business with. But I kind of like in this case, like that is the way that we became friends, and Somos is a way that we remain friends, I think.
Yes, and it keeps us together, and we have a shared vision, and we're working towards it. But thank you.
About so I guess where do you see growth coming for SOMOS? Is it with existing retailers and growing the portfolio there, or more national chains, regional chains?
Yeah, no, that is an awesome question. So Anna, actually, our head of marketing, that also came from Kind, did something really cool, and she, would basically, in terms of followers, she will bring like all the top like CPG companies with all the followers, and she would tell us where we were ranking, and then every time that we would take down a company that was above us and we would move up in the ranking, we went from, the moment she started doing that, we went from 3,500 followers to 35,000 in like, 6 or 7 months, which was amazing. So I decided to adopt the same for share. So the way that we look at it is, rice, which is our number one SKU, without rice, we won't have anywhere in the portfolio. Where are we? So today, we are the 28th largest rice manufacturer in the US, and every month we try to take someone down. Last month we took 3 down. So we are like moving very quickly, and it's a matter of 3 things. When you look at it, and like the top 10 rice manufacturer, number 10 is $100 million in sales. So for us, getting to the top 10, it's like the route to like get us there. And it's 3 things that will get you the share. It is number of doors, number of items, and dollars per SKU. So it's very clear that the number one driver is dollars per SKU. So we have the velocities to get to the top 20, but we don't have yet the velocities to get to the top 10. So half of our growth has to come from velocities, to get from $30,000, per TDP to $60,000 per TDP, where are the top 10 manufacturers. And then as you grow your velocities, that lets you increase your number of doors and your number of average units per store. So that's kind of like what we do. And every quad week, we get the data and we celebrate. Hopefully, we take on another 3 more, La Preferida, you're next in line. And, we continue growing.
Anyway.
So SOMOS means we are. Yes. So have you ever explored selling SOMOS at Penn State or doing a partnership with them?
Oh, I didn't know Penn State was there. No, but I'll tell you something really cool. I'm glad that you brought this up with me. Taking your idea and making it a little bit bigger. So on 2026, Mexico, US, and Canada are going to host the World Cup. And do you know what is the motto for that World Cup? Is we are 26 and somos 26. So I think, there's a big opportunity there, and we're definitely been thinking on ways, we've had calls with FIFA because they're trying to trademark SOMOS in our category, and we had to fight them back. But I think there's a lot of ways that, we think that's going to be like the perfect time, and there's going to be tons of billboards with the word SOMOS. So what we're trying to do is, hey, how can we hack that without paying, $25 million to FIFA?
Anyone else like to ask a question?
Thank you for sharing. Miguel, you mentioned your experience on launching in 4,000 stores and then realizing that maybe 400 would be best idea. Based on your experience now, how would you select those 400? So for brands that are just starting, how would you advise to think strategically on like finding the best stores to launch or even to scale step by step?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't know that I'm going to have the right answer, but I'll just gut reaction. If I had to choose 400 stores for SOMOS, I would have chosen 200 Whole Foods and then 200 Myers, H-E-B's, or Albertsons. Because the day we launch into Whole Foods, the day we launch our enchilada sauce at Whole Foods, we became the #1 enchilada at Whole Foods. But then when you take that same enchilada at Albertsons, you don't get the same turns. You cannot just take there are only, 597 Whole Foods in the country, and you need to get to 35,000 stores, right? So it's just not going to turn as well. So in a lot of ways, as an entrepreneur, I want to have the story that my product is turning really well at Whole Foods. Costco called me the day we launched at Whole Foods. Wegmans calls us because we were at Whole Foods. Whole Foods was just like an amazing, a store that opened a lot of doors. But figuring out what was the right price point at Meijer, and what was the right merchandising, and what was the right shopper marketing activity that was going to double our velocities was maybe even more important for those doors that Whole Foods was going to open up. So I don't know that it's the same two retailers for every brand, but for us, if there is something that I didn't know that I wish I had known, it would have been that.
Anyone else? Last one? Okay.
I don't need a mic.
All right. Please help yourself.
Oh, yeah. So just two questions. You mentioned that you guys are in 3 categories in major national chain. What are those 3 categories?
Yeah, so we manufacture 3 categories of products, but we are in the same shelf in retail. So the 3 categories that we manufacture are rices, beans, and cooking sauces, but we have the 3 of them together in the Mexican set. Sometimes that is not possible because of a space restriction. And like Publix, we have rice on one aisle. We just got news that we are getting our beans in Publix next month. So beans are going to be in a different aisle. But where we can't, when you're starting up, you get what they give you, right? You're not going to get exactly the space that you want. But when we can influence it, we want all the items together so we can promote the recipes.
I think plans to expand into other areas. The reason why I'm a cheese importer from Colombia, actually. And if there's anything that's sacred to Mexicans, it's cheese. Any plans to expand into dairy or other categories?
No, not at all. So, we have a big thesis on Mexican food, but my personal opinion is I've never seen a food brand, or for that, a Mexican food brand that has done really well in 3 different climates. So in shelf stable, in frozen, and in fresh. I've seen one company do really well in one and try to expand and then go back. So, our thesis with Mexican food is that we, want to build a company that solves all the issues, all the problems that consumers have with Mexican food, but that SOMOS will be the brand for shelf stable, and then we will partner, with other companies. We've looked at companies in dairies, for acquisition, so to tag them on as add-ons to the group, but and frozen as well. But so far, we just haven't found the right partner. But no, I think it will have to be done through different brands. Yes. We chose the one with the highest margin.
Before we go, I'm just dying to know, they say the West Coast reigns supreme with Mexican food. So, but being that we're here in New York, which is your go-to Mexican auténtico
Listen,
restaurant?
I moved here from San Francisco. They have nothing on tacos número uno here.
So good.
They're very good. I would
The
even
other
take
day, actually.
my family, if they came to visit me here, I would take them there.
For me, it's also tacos número uno. Yeah, it's
Al pastor
delicious.
and steak.
Delicious.
And if someone else is paying, I would go to Cosme, but
Yeah, I've yet to go. It's on my list. Good to know. Well, Rodrigo, Miguel, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, the brand. And I thank Naturally New York, Adrian, and the team for putting this together and facilitating this amazing conversation. And don't forget to sample our brand partners. There's many lovely samples. So please take advantage. And
yeah, please take products from the SOMOS table. We don't want to hold them back to our apartments. Thank you.
thank you.